Hi everyone, my name's Tim and I'm a mental health lecturer and trade union branch officer. The title of this presentation is made of two phrases, at least one of which is not an internationally or even a nationally recognised term. The front room was a reception in a home in which I grew up, where we never went. It was kept for best, and apart from my dad writing the odd sermon in there or listening to Dark Side of the Moon after a heavy day at work, was used only at Christmas. This is a common concept in work in a lower middle class household in the north of England. The room presented a neat facade for important visitors and to the outside world passing by, so the room was literally at the front of the house and figuratively presented a tidy front to those walking down the street. The home front was initially used to describe the general public's involvement in World War I, when royalist propaganda, mass conscription and the public shaming and even execution of conscientious objectors made involvement pretty much unavoidable. In Britain, it is the propaganda produced by the wartime government during the Second World War which was dominated the public consciousness. Official messages reported the home front was marked by make do and mend and dig for victory, thrift and self-reliance and sacrifice on the part of individuals and families. In actual fact, crime rose and there was much corruption and profiteering. Another front. Health and safety at work is an essential concern for everyone. The 1977 UK Safety Representatives and Safety Committees regulations make provision for workplace inspections carried out by trade-appointed trade union representatives to identify safe working practices, identify hazards, amongst other duties. Common workplace hazards may include slips, trips and falls, fire risks, stress, adequate PPE, extreme temperatures, working at height, working in confined spaces, musculoskeletal damage, eye strain, hazardous substances, violence, and so on. Recent events have drawn our attention to the importance of the concept of health and safety for people in all work environments and indeed in none. The seriousness with which employers in the UK are currently addressing this is notable. However, many of these employers, whilst thinking long and hard about the public-facing health and safety which relates to business image, are less concerned with the health and safety of staff members who are hidden from public view, having been instructed to work from home, whilst maintaining business as usual. In a recent trade union equality reps meeting, a colleague noted that this is not working from home, it is making do as best we can in the circumstances. For some, the means of conducting the majority of their work is the same means by which they maintain their meaningful relationships with family and friends. The same equipment is used for music lessons, French lessons, job interview panels, academic meetings, family and friend chats and entertainment. This inseparability distorts the ends of work and pushes it into ever longer hours, eroding the length and quality of time available to spend as a family. It creates animosity towards each other when there is competition for particular workspace or equipment. As the workplace became merged with the family, social, leisure, food preparation and other space in our 3-bedroom semi, and my back would take no more sofa or bed-based typing, I sought to retrieve my office chair for use at home. This epic struggle is too dull to record here, but it required a workplace health and safety audit and an interview with the employer's health and safety team. Conducting the audit occasioned me to consider where exactly the workplace is in our house. This in turn led me to a health and safety course from the Trade Union Congress of Great Britain. The inspection consisted of a workplace mapping exercise, including photographs of potential hazards and relevant areas. I also employed body mapping to consider where the worker experienced issues. I will be completing these for all workers and non-workers in our place of business home, but I've no time to consider it all here. Following the inspection, a report is completed for distribution to members of the union, workplace colleagues, and sharing with management. There are two people who work full-time in our house. Between us, we represent health and social care. The workplace consists of the main office, the back office, mezzanine with ensuite, the meeting room, and various executive breakout spaces. Conclusions of the report. Around musculoskeletal injury, it turns out that doing interviews for 2 days solid, sat on a bed using a laptop is bad for your back. And whilst regular physical exercise has certainly helped, thank you Joe Wicks, ultimately long sedentary days will exacerbate old niggles. My neck stops working properly, my shoulder freezes up and my back won't bend too well. In resolving my back and arm pains, I extend out to the delivery centre, the 0 hours delivery driver, the spent kerosene used to bring the solutions from far off where workers may be in all manner of conditions. Where does the kerosene come from and the plastics used in the manufacture of the laptop stand? What health and safety considerations are given to the extraction and processing of these materials and to the manufacture of the stand? My arms and hands complete spreadsheets which sign off students as fit to proceed into extended practice placements to provide cover during the pandemic. My health and safety is guarded within my home, but my home, by including my work, extends into the practice with these students. Disease. Going out to do the shopping, putting on the mask, taking gloves and alcohol gel and putting them in pockets. Returning with the shopping, it is brought in through the garage door for processing. Packets and tins are wiped with antibacterial solution, so are the car keys, door keys, phone and cash card. All the fruit and veg is washed. Where will this all end up? Faced with the scale of our consumption, we have to do the whole week shopping in one go. It's pretty staggering. We have avoided the way by the whole food shop, the local shops and the market to keep our contact time with outside and other people to a minimum. We travel less, so our food travels much, much more. Walking back from the shop to the car, I see discarded face masks and gloves on the pavements. The UK has one of the world's highest rates of health and social care worker coronavirus-related deaths. Noise. I have tinnitus. It's when I stop, when I turn off the computer, put down the phone, when the children are asleep, and the whole home, school, workplace stops. That's when I can hear it again. When there are no more queries about deaths or other people's fears, the ringing is inescapable. Listen to it. The noise of panic buying, the din of empty clapping, the endless parade of contradictory announcements, all of this drowning out the sound more deserving of attention. The cracking of ice, the gunfire, the abuse, and the hatred. Tinnitus almost drowns out the four muffled chimes that tell, but I can detect them through the din. Restlessness won't go. I hurry in my mind to the garden and imagine digging, raking, and sowing. Not a trench, I think to myself. Not a grave. Making a screen of poppies and leaving to the wild the space behind for bugs, frogs, and rot to play. Know where they are. Deaths, she says again into the headset. These are the same deaths discussed 10 minutes ago, but then it was the GP she was talking to. Now it is the inspector. Earlier this morning, the deaths were discussed with the manager, then the social worker. After the current call, the deaths will be discussed by my wife and another team member. The same deaths, but the repeated mention pulls the attention. People are dying. According to the British Tinnitus Association, for some people, tinnitus acts as their barometer of stress, often worsening when there are difficult things going on in life. Stress. Can a house be stressed? It shows signs of depressed sagging and cracking. Signs of unruly mania. In describing the unhindered, uncluttered, unpeopled centre of Liverpool, Jamie McPhee asks whether a place can have OCD. Applying this principle to environmental health, to our home, office, school, leisure facility, and I can see less signs of anger than I previously could. There are less broken bits and dents, but I do see sags in the garage roof, unwashed windows, and overabundance of information, books, computer files, filling spaces meant for other things. As someone with a PhD in hoarding, I am minded of the criterion from the DSM-5 in relation to diagnosing hoarding disorder, that the living space can no longer be used for its intended purpose, and this causes impairment or distress. My home's ability to function is impaired by the ever-present laptops, work emails, or other devices, piles of papers and books relating to teaching, notes on matters not associated with home, and the conversations, the intrusive and long conversations about deaths due to COVID, deaths by suicide, scandalous injustices of care of which I am not permitted to say more here. We have not asked for these to be in our home, creating divides between the four of us and impairing our interactions, dampening our lives. The physical presence of workstations in our home in areas of common use, the living room and the landing, trouble their status as shared territory and invest spaces with leaky stress and anger and anxiety, manic moments of inappropriate humour, even when not in use. As the lasting effects of meetings, supervisions, moans, arguments, reports, and other matters of work pervade the air and the floorboards and the bookcase and the laundry basket and the piano and the sofa and so on and so on and so on. As workers bounded by narrow definitions of labour, the homeschooling and care of our children is staged as a necessary but inconvenient irritation by our employers. This being the case, as dutiful public servants, we give our children insufficient attention and supervision to make sure that we maintain the institutional reputation. The post-inspection report. The way we conceive of health and safety is as the individual right of workers. These workers are imagined through a lens which serves to other workers in different locations, performing different tasks. It is a humanist conception in which the human is a particular human. Workers of the world unite, we might say, in response to this problem. Marx and Engels declare working men of the world unite from a geographical and historical position. The harms occasioned in the extraction, manufacture and delivery processes involved in the solution to my work-related injury produce greater injuries to not only this worker, not only those involved in these processes, but all workers and non-workers, if anyone can be conceived as such. Universities in the United Kingdom are expediting student nurses' deployment into clinical practice at the behest of Health Education England to help bolster the National Health Service during the coronavirus pandemic. At the end of all this, there will surely be a strong bond between those students, practitioners and returners who did. But what of those who didn't? Whilst the circumstances and indeed goalposts were moved for students several times over the course of the last 2 months, they still had to make this life-affecting decision. The value of their education has been seriously undermined by the NMC's hasty rewriting of the rulebook to accommodate governmental demands for more nurses. Let's not forget those 50,000 nurses promised in the last election manifesto. The point has been made many times that degree nurses have been demonstrated to be safer practitioners, a key consideration for health and safety, you might think. The fake home front, put up by the government of the UK in reference to the COVID pandemic, failed to cover up the reality of sanctioned expedited sacrifice of people whose social status is less or who could not afford to turn down even low-paid, risky work, and no amount of homegrown home-sown responsible behaviour can hide that. But we could talk about the health and safety of persons instead of people, and perhaps take more time to understand individual needs and consequences. Bringing the focus of health and safety down to the individual is misapplied when it then turns the responsibility for workplace health and safety onto the worker, forcing a narrow and short-termist perspective. The preservation of health and safety based on individual tasks and individual workers in individual settings may serve to harm workers elsewhere through the mass production of global solutions to the local problem. As a principle, if health and safety starts with the premise that work without love is harmful, we may be encouraged to consider more than a single instance or group of instances. I believe my photographs show love in my workplace home, and this has made me question what has been causing me to prioritise work over family when work is the only means to family. With thanks to Peggy, Sarah, Ted, Rosie Bridotti, Donna Haraway, Jamie McPhee, the Health and Safety Executive, and the Trade Union Congress, and anyone who has called bullshit on the treatment and health of social care workers.